coming home? Is it coming home?
Well, I get very nervous about saying it's coming home. So it depends at what stage of the night you find me. But I mean, I'd like to think it's coming home. But last time in the World Cup, I thought it was coming home, and I told everyone it's coming home, as we all did, and then got disappointed. However, I do think this year it just might be coming home.
It just might be. It just might be. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I am very excited about this prospect, as you may be able to tell. If you're watching along, we both kind of want to hear your views. If you're an England fan, if you're not an England fan, you can laugh at us. And next time we're here, we'll know one way or the other what's happening.
Yes. And we apologise to any German fans on who are pouring sipping with us. We apologise. But let us know when you were watching the game and if you had some any nice whiskey during the game. If you what you were doing, let us know where you guys were. That would be great. I can see we're now live on Facebook and we're now live on YouTube. Awesome.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Another point of order is Mike's epic cheese board that I've been alerted to through the wonder of social media. So Mike, I don't know if we can do like a star taster. I feel like we've not tasted any whiskey yet, but I feel like that award goes to you for the epic accompaniment in terms of cheese and snacks.
I've got to say, I think Mike set a kind of a bar there for everyone. It's this is just epic pour and sipping. That is just the perfect pour and sip. So if you guys also have got plates of cheese or anything, do let us know. I'd love seeing that. That was awesome. So big yourself up, Mike Pizarro. That was awesome.
Absolutely. I love it. So yeah, top marks for Mike. And yeah, I want to see your tasting setups actually. Like send us your snaps. We're obviously at Pour and Sip Club. So yeah, we want to see them, whether it's in the comments or just tag us in a post. It's always interesting to see actually how people sip along. I've got my very professional stack of boxes with my laptop on top and my tasting glasses next here. But yes, so also a very important point of note. We are on our third point of note now. It was Father's Day recently, and I feel like we're going to have a whole bunch of people who got Pour and Sip as a Father's Day gift. So if that's you and your box looks like this, welcome to the party.
Yes, absolutely. We welcome to all first timers, whether you got it for gift or if you've been with us for it was my first Father's Day this year. I have to say, my 9-week-old son was very kind and got me the Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or, the Sauternes cask. Very, very smart kid, this one. So
very smart kid with a very advanced palate. Obviously, should be of legal drinking age.
Yes, yeah, obviously. I mean, he's not had it. Obviously, he bought it for me, so it's wonderful of him.
Exactly. So if you are new and this is your first tasting with us, it's so great to have you here. Let us know. Yeah. This is really informal, really chatty. We want to hear what you think of the whiskies. Very interactive. So get involved, get stuck into the comments. If you've not tasted whiskey before, you should have a how to taste whiskey guide in your box. Feel free to ignore it, but it might be handy if you want to get some of these tasting notes out. And underneath your whiskies, you've got your 2 tasting glasses if you're new. I have heard of people missing those in the box. So yeah, very useful for drinking, I feel.
Yes, definitely for nosing whiskey. This is going to really help you if you use these and it's your first box and you've got these with you. It's really going to help you kind of uncover all those kinds of aromas that we're talking about. And remember, I say this every time, but if you are new, please get involved with your tasting notes. Whatever you think they are, it's totally subjective. There's really no right or wrong answer. So please get involved. I think the more ridiculous, the better. So please give us your tasting notes. We love to read them. And so
exactly. We want to hear from you. And so you've got your 5 grams in front of you. We should probably tell you what we're going to do this evening rather than just witter on about football and cheese boards and goodness knows what else. So we are going to kick things off on the theme of Father's Day with Daddy Rack, which is the straight Tennessee whiskey, which we'll talk all about in a sec. Andy and myself, I'm Christy, by the way, if we have not yet been acquainted. So get that ready. Next up, we have got a special guest. We've got TJ. He's going to talk with Andy all about the John Walker blend. So if you think blended Scotch isn't for you, I encourage you to keep an open mind for this one. This is one of my favourite whiskies of last year, and I'm really thrilled it's in the box. And then last but not least, I am going to have a chat through with Andy about Bowmore, which is a delight of a smoky thing to round off with.
That sounds like a wonderful menu, Christy.
Yes, I think it is. Make sure you've got some water to add a few drops, or just to cleanse your palate in between. If you've got your glasses, you've got your water, you've got your device to tell us all your thoughts, we are ready to go, I think.
Yes. So what are we starting with? We're starting with the Daddy Rack.
Daddy Rack, this one right here. So crack your drams, pour it in the glass. Some people like to let their whiskey have a little bit of a breather. If that's you, great. If not, it's fine. You can just pour and go. Don't worry. I'm not going to just sit here and tell you how to taste a nose. You've got the guide in front of you. But what I would say with a lot of these, if you are new, don't just stick your nose straight in the glass. This whole thing about getting into whiskey is about giving your kind of your sensory perception the best chance. We're fighting against some quite high ABV alcohol here, so take it slow, don't overwhelm yourself. Feel free to add water. These are your whiskies. Love them, do what you want with them, enjoy them.
Absolutely. So I think this one's actually really interesting because, as you'll see, it would say Tennessee whiskey on it, which kind of we do tend to recognize as seeing with Jack Daniels, obviously being the most famous of the Tennessee whiskies. So it's nice to see another like straight Tennessee whiskey come out on the scene. And this is really interesting because it's set up by a guy called J. Arthur Rackham, aka Daddy Rack himself.
Daddy Rack.
The name given to him by his daughter, which I think is really sweet, actually. And he was born above and grew up in a liquor store above of his dad's shop in Portobello Road, so local to all of us, and worked for Camus, the cognac company, and learned his trade there, and now just wanted to fulfill a dream of setting up his own whiskey and making his own whiskey. And here we are with this beautiful Tennessee whiskey. Now, the really interesting thing about Tennessee whiskey is it's not bourbon. So that's the first thing. So if you look at a bottle of Jack Daniels, for example, it won't say bourbon on it because it's not. Now, what makes Tennessee whiskey different to bourbon? I think that's the most interesting thing to point out here, because most of the rules and regulations are the same, and you can make bourbon literally anywhere in the US. But Tennessee whiskey literally has to be made in Tennessee. And that's firstly the biggest difference. It's still the same rules and regulations. It has to be aged for 2 years minimum in new American oak casks, 40% ABV minimum, and also it needs to be 51% corn or more to be legally bourbon or Tennessee whiskey. Now, the really interesting thing is what makes it Tennessee whiskey as well. What is the unique thing to why this is Tennessee whiskey? Well, it goes through a process called the Lincoln County process. And Christy, do you know much about the Lincoln County process?
I know a little bit about it. So I think it's really fun, actually, if you know something like this or Jack Daniels alongside a bourbon, because the Lincoln County process, it's got a really fancy name for something that's actually pretty straightforward. It's a filtration process. And sometimes I feel like we get really technical and really like caught up in ourselves about these sorts of things. All it is, they filtered the spirit through maple charcoal staves. So they've basically given it like a little sort of way to like smooth it out. It doesn't add anything to it. It doesn't add smoke. It doesn't add color. None of this. It literally strips out some of those harsher flavors. So it leaves something behind that's a little bit smoother, a little bit sweeter. And bourbon producers choose not to do it because they like those sort of grippy kind of aromas and flavors and compounds that give it that kind of like, I would say, slightly rounder, bigger mouthfeel character. But this is all about the smoothness. And if as a producer you're choosing to do this extra level of filtration, you're all about those sweet core notes. You want them to shine. You want them to sing and like talk all about the kind of like butteriness and that textural element as well.
That's exactly. So it's more of a subtractive process. It's not actually adding anything to the whiskey. It's kind of taking out, like Christy said, those harsh notes. So we can expect something quite smooth here. Also bottled at 40% ABV. While obviously 40% ABV, if you're not used to drinking neat spirit, could still be quite potent in comparison to some of the other whiskies we drunk, or kind of heavier cask strength bourbons, barrel proof bourbons. 40% is on the lighter side. We're looking at a mash bill here of 80% corn. So we can expect some really sweet notes from the corn. I mean, I love high corn recipes. 10% rye, and the rest is malted barley. So without further ado, because everyone is actually already giving
I love it. I love the enthusiasm. Never wait for us. Honestly, crack on. I love it. We love to see it.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to make sure we don't miss anybody. But actually, Steve Coleman Williams just saying this is for the Johnny Walker, but his subscription has converted his snobbishness about blends. So yeah, that's for something else. Pat Cowling, toast and butter with a drizzle and honey. Ian Turner, hello, Christy and Andy. Here's to a great evening. Absolutely. Thank you, Ian.
Cheers.
Hello, cheers. El Sutton, buttery. Mike Pizarro, smells like buttered popcorn. James Fallon, vanilla fudge in Cornwall. Absolutely, Cornwall fudge is the absolute best. Sarah Seawright, excited for Tennessee whiskey being here. Missing home. Oh, wow.
Oh, we got a Tennessee resident among us. I love this.
And Simon, love the nose butter popcorn maple syrup. Steve Common Williams, honey and fresh warm butter. Ian Jambo Rain, agree with the buttery comment. Getting Kirsch soaked cherries too. Christy, we need to have a go at this.
We need to have a go at this. So yeah, I mean, for me, this is spot on. The nose is so rich, so buttery, so popcorn forward. It's an absolute delight. Oh my gosh. And I think, yeah, some people are picking up on some of the oak as well. And it's like toastiness and vanilla-iness. And that's from that new barrel. This is something that's so characteristic of bourbons and Tennessee whiskey because it, by law, has to go into a brand new barrel. In Scotch, we're so used to seeing like bourbon or ex-sherry because it's been in there before. This is literally what happens when you put your whiskey or spirit straight into this brand new stuff. You get this lovely toasty vanilla sort of gentle spice. I'm so here for it.
Yeah, it's lovely kind of barrel char. But for me, the biggest nose that's coming literally instantly is banana, like the kind of banana toffee kind of pudding kind of vibes, foam bananas. It's like a really wonderful banana-y nose. That's the thing that's hitting me the most.
It's so good.
Yeah, I've got to say.
It's so fun. Well, shall we have a little taste?
Oh,
Cheers.
Yeah.
This is my first ram of the day, as I'm sure it's for many people. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
I love this. I'm getting so much toffee.
Toffee, absolutely. Kind of, and the finish is actually quite lingering, I have to say, which I wasn't actually expecting, to be honest with you. It's really nice, like nice baking spices on the finish, like cinnamon, cloves as well, a bit of pepper as well there in the background, but definitely wood spice is what I'm getting, a lot of wood spice on the finish. Yep. But yeah, the buttered popcorn is definitely, I'm here for that, because that is absolutely what I'm getting, and also kind of American buttered popcorn, I have to say.
Oh yeah, it is a classic. I did buy you some Bakewell tart vibes as well. There's a bit of like a nuttiness which I'm enjoying.
Someone actually mentioned Bakewell tart, and Darren.
Did they?
Yeah, at night, candy floss, absolutely candy floss. It's fairground kind of candy floss vibes, or cotton candy, should we say? Pesho, yeah, I'm getting the cherries on the nose. Ali Curran, wood dried corn. There's loads of tasting notes for this, Christy. Absolutely loads.
There's so many. I'm going to give a quick shout out to Darren. Recently got the subscription for my 50th, so enjoying the quality. First tasting session with you and enjoying every minute. Yes, welcome, Darren. Thank you for coming to join us.
It's absolutely what we want to hear. Green Tea is Green, who definitely is not on his first tasting session with us. Green Tea is Green from the beginning. Thank you. Welcome back. The nose fills out the longer it breathes. That often happens for me, I have to say. I'm always disappointed sometimes when I first nose, but then with a little bit of time, it really gets that kind of the air in the glass going. Jim Glancy, chocolate cherry liqueurs. Jeff White Nougat, getting the cherry. David Stanton, candy floss. David Collett goes well with the cherries. Guy CP, anyone else get a little brown sugar too? Absolutely, brown sugar is definitely that. I often get brown sugar with the kind of sweeter, higher corn bourbons and Tennessee whiskey in this case. Malcolm Tucker, oak with light toffee and some fruit that I haven't nailed. Ian Thompson finally got the buttery popcorn after a few drops of aqua. Yes, Rob Bester, the rules for Tennessee whiskey do request that it has got to be a new barrel as well. So they're basically exactly the same as bourbon, except for the fact that it has to be produced in Tennessee and it has to go through this Lincoln County process that we were talking about. David Stanton, banana, vanilla, absolutely. So yeah, there's loads of tasting notes coming through here.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. The burnt sugar, banoffee pie. It's very desserty. I feel like if you've already had dinner, you're going to have, yeah, this is a really wonderful feast. This is your third course for sure. Yeah,
this is, look, it's really, really smooth. And that has obviously also come from, and I hate using that word in whiskey because it is overused so much, but this really is smooth, but not in a bad way. Those harsher elements that you do get in kinds of higher proof bourbons have absolutely been filtered out of this. And I often go for kind of heavy mouthfeel bourbons, stuff like your cask strength Elijah Craig's and Heaven Hill stuff, that barrel proof. But I have to say that this is wonderful. And I think it offers a great alternative to Jack Daniel's, which gets maligned for whatever reason. But this is really nice tasting a Tennessee whiskey that's not Jack Daniel's or George Dickel. And I'm really impressed with this. I think it's really cool. And this would be one that I'd have on my cabinet and I could just pour myself at any time. It's just a wonderful, sweet dessert dram.
Definitely. I'm really excited actually that we can see like a little bit of a category emerging here, which I'm enjoying. It's not just the big names. Shout out to Adrian. He's saying, sorry a bit late for joining us. We'll let you off. He's made a ginger cake. I feel like this would be a good whiskey to pair with a ginger cake. I don't know. I feel like a bit of the sort of lift from the ginger to go through the sweetness of this. I think it could be a match made in heaven. Yeah, there's also some of that kind of ginger spice on here as well on the finish. So it would absolutely be a wonderful pairing. Pesho, little water seems to make this a bit sweeter. Blimey. Well, I actually haven't tried this with water yet, but wow, I mean, I think this is super sweet for me, just drinking neat. I think if the water makes it even sweeter, wow. Brissy C, definitely toffee and nice pepper aftertaste. I get that as well. Rob Bester, warm caramel, vanilla ice cream. Honestly, I'm getting the absolute dessert vibes here, and I've not had dessert yet, so it's nice. So, Colin Bell, what a great, gently everyday whiskey for the Willy Wonka fans out there. Absolutely. Really smooth, no burn. Ames Fallon, David Stanton, hint of nutmeg. Darren W getting the toffee.
yeah, I mean, I think we're all getting these kinds of toffee sort kind of popcorn notes. The banana for me as well is more prominent on the nose, I think, than it is on the palate. Also getting little bits of kind of hints of like American like peanut brittle kinds of vibes as well, and then with the hint of salt in there as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, really enjoying it. And I want to know where Kevin's tuning in from. He's like, this is just lovely on a sunny evening. It is so grey where I am on the south coast. I'm slightly envious right now.
Oh, it's quite nice here in London.
Nikolai, Daddy Rack and Coke, anyone? Do you know what? I love a highball situation. I think people sometimes get like a bit snobby about mixing whiskey and anything to lengthen it out. I think this, I was thinking like sort of soda kind of a vibe with this would be lovely. But if cola's your thing, go for it. I
definitely think that this would be a whiskey that would happily take kinds of mixers. I have to be honest. It's wonderful neat, I have to say. But I definitely would assume that this would go great in cocktails and would be great mixed. Cream soda, if you want to be all American about it. I'm on the palate, definitely gets it. It's just because whenever I go to see this American, my head goes to America, and I'm like, oh god, and I'm like Coca-Cola floats, which is one of my favorite things in America. I'm absolutely getting this on the palate. I have to say, that kind of vanilla ice cream inside of Coca-Cola.
Well, when our next joins us, our next guest, our star guest of this evening, TJ, he knows a thing or two about a whiskey and Coke and ice cream, is all I'm going to say. But I think from the last time I saw him in person, there was a smoky, cokey, floaty vibe, which I will ask him about in just a second. But yeah, before we move on to the second whiskey, I really enjoyed this one, Andy. It was a really, really great start for the whole month.
Yeah, oh god, this is the first pour and sip.
1st of July. And also, we haven't even raised a glass for our American friends with the 4th of July coming up.
Yes, so we should.
Yes, happy 4th of July in a couple of days' time.
I want to celebrate. I've got to say, I really, really like this. I have to be honest. It is really sweet, but it's not cloyingly sweet. It's not over sweet. There's that, like you said, that kind of barrel jar, the hint of wood spice, the little kick from the finish of kind of black pepper and a bit of kind of cinnamon that kind of gives this a tiny bit of an edge without being over sweet. Yeah, I agree. I really agree. It kind of tracks the right side of sweetness without being sticky. That's exactly it. Amazing. Yes, Blind Badger cocktails. They're saying this would be perfect in an old-fashioned cocktail. I feel like Blind Badger cocktails might know something about cocktails with that name. So yeah, no, I think this would be great in an old-fashioned. It's got that little bit of spice as well that would help it. Ian Jambo Rain, sun's out in the New Forest. Oh, that's a beautiful part of the world to be, I have to say. Gorgeous. Sarah Pitt Bailey, soz, but ours is horrid, bitter and undrinkable. Lovely. Am I missing something? Well, absolutely. The great thing about whiskey is that it is subjective, I have to say. So, you know, we everyone has their own kinds of vibe, their own things that they like. So each to their own, I have to say. If this one's not for you, the great thing about pour and sip is I can guarantee you 1 dram from this box will definitely be for you. Rob Bester, whiskey Coke float, I'm assuming you're trying to say they're not flat. Wow, that's a revelation. Absolutely, a whiskey Coke float. I mean, now you're talking. I've never had a whiskey Coke float, but yeah. Just you wait. TJ's going to enlighten us, I'm sure. I can see him just in the back room laughing at me. But yeah. Oh, something smoky floaty. Tell us more. Oh, Colin Barthgate, I wish you better. Sadly, I'm having to miss tonight's tasting. I'm still recovering from COVID. My sense of taste and smell hasn't returned yet. Looking forward to finally tasting this interesting drams. When I had COVID back over a year ago, I lost my sense of taste and smell. It took about 2 weeks to recover. So I really hope for you, because I mean, I have to say, not trying whiskey was one of the worst things. I'm not even joking. It was awful. I really hope. Crossing everything for you, Colin. Yeah, get well soon. Get better. And Pesho is saying he likes the sweetness. I agree. I think there's a time and place for sweetness. Like, I wouldn't, you know, it's not what I want all the time. But if I was looking for a really lovely, smooth, sweet, easy drinking dram, I think this would be right up there for me, to be honest with you. It's wonderful. I agree. Well, amazing. Keep your questions, comments, taste notes coming in. We're going to put little Daddy Rack to one side for now, because we are going to welcome our guest of the evening, who is TJ. Let me just buzz him in. Hi, TJ. How are you doing? We can't hear you, TJ. We can. Yes, he's here.
Can you hear me now?
Slight. Yes, we've got a little bit of a delay, but we'll work with it. We will work with it. It's fine. How are you?
Life is good. We've had our day of summer in Scotland today, so It's been, you know, super sunny that day. Suntans are done, and we're awaiting winter now.
Which is
it's
just
going to be a long old autumn view. Now, before I leave you in Andy's capable hands and to talk us through the next whiskey, talk to us about floaty, cokey, smoky situation. I've said it wrong.
So I knew this was coming, and I had a feeling as soon as someone said whiskey, coke, float.
That was my fault.
The first time Christiane and myself met was at Islay Whiskey Festival in 2019. I had not long taken the reins of the new whiskey ambassador based here in Scotland for Diageo, and I decided I'd try and make a bit of a splash, excuse the pun. And we arrived at Islay Whiskey Festival. I took a crew of bartenders with me to man a cocktail bar, and I was in the filling store with Colin Dunn. And we were doing cocktail presentations and just having a bit of fun and a sing-along. But we decided on the menu that we'd put some really, I don't know, controversial Lagavulin drinks on the menu for Lagavulin Day. And one of which, I guess the smoky cokey had been around for a while, been heroed by Irvin Tchaikovsky, my predecessor, Stephen Martin, my predecessor, and I decided let's try and do something a bit different here. And it was hilarious because there were people who couldn't believe that we were putting Lagavulin in Coca-Cola when we were out on the Friday night. And then the next day we'd arrive at the bar and we're like, well, we'll try a smoky, cokey, floaty. And literally the amount of people who turn around were like, Lagavulin and Coca-Cola is the devil, but put some ice cream on top, and it's the best thing I've ever tried. So basic, so simple. Kind of takes you back to a childhood idea. My mother's Japanese, so I travelled over there a lot. And they always had every soft drink possible with a float on top. So it's kind of nice to bring back.
Hold on, so it says Lagavulin, Coke, and ice cream on top.
That's exactly it. It's really simple.
Wow. It's amazing. I endorse this message. It was delicious at the time and it would be delicious again now. So on that note, I'm going to zip myself off, have loads of fun, and I will be listening and sipping along.
Bye, Christy.
See you in a bit.
See you later. Just Ed, but before we get into the interview, if anyone does have any questions for TJ about the dram we're about to drink and about Johnnie Walker in general, please get them in now and we'll try and answer as many. We get lots of questions, TJ, so it's great if you do have your questions to get them in. So talk to us a bit about yourself, TJ, and how you've got into the position you are as brand ambassador for Diageo.
So I'm currently now at standing in for one of my colleagues, Ali Reynolds, as the GB Johnnie Walker ambassador. For anyone who really follows Johnnie Walker or whiskey extensively, you'll know that we're doing a huge amount of investment into Johnnie Walker and a lot of our distilleries. Prior to that, I spent 2.5 years as the single malt whiskey ambassador in Scotland as well. And before that, I had an events and consultancy business, and we travelled around doing really similar to what we do now. And I guess we moved into that from being competition bartenders, running cocktail bars, offering a hand to any brand that wanted a hand just to gain experience. Quite often you were paid with a bottle of booze rather than actually be able to get put on payroll, but the experience was a really good build-up. Probably one of the reasons down to why I've got a huge booze collection in my house now as well. Yeah,
I was about to say, it must be pretty impressive. We need to see it. We need to see it. You got your friend. You can give us a tour.
I would love to, but I'll admit I've got washing hanging up in my living room, and that's what I'm using. It's clean underwear I'd show everyone, but I think that may be a bit much.
Yeah, okay. We don't need to see that. So just in case anyone is on Facebook and have any issues getting, you can go over to YouTube. We are streaming at the moment on YouTube. We do apologise. So yeah, head over to YouTube and you can watch us live now. Malcolm Tucker's asking what flavour ice cream, by the way, is for the smoky flavour.
We chop and change, actually. Anything between vanilla ice cream, hazelnut ice cream, or cherry sorbet is one of our personal favourites.
Cherry sorbet.
Cherry works really well. I always like cherry Coca-Cola, but Lagavulin and cherry Coca-Cola doesn't work. Lagavulin Coca-Cola cherry bitters works really well. It's just about finding that combination of pulling things out.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds awesome. Well, I think everyone's going to be really interested about this one, to be honest with you. I think Johnnie Walker has this kind of, we just recognise Johnnie Walker, so it's just so notorious. So talk to us a bit about how we've gone from so many years ago and how Johnnie Walker's got so big now. Give us a little bit brief history.
I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal when you think we've just celebrated last year our 200-year anniversary for Johnnie Walker. 200 years since a 15-year-old boy opened a grocery store in a small village called Kilmarnock, just south of Glasgow in Ayrshire. The family decided they would sell their farm and move into the city, the big city of Kilmarnock. And little John Walker knocked on Mummy and Daddy's bedroom door one night and said, "Hey, I think we should open a grocer's store." They took the leap of faith, and that's what happened. That's what they used the money for. It's phenomenal that you think a foolish little 15-year-old boy has now become, the biggest name in Scotch whisky globally. It's phenomenal. And I guess, the experimentation when the grocery store opened, blended whiskey was actually illegal. So he was blending in the shop for customers when they came in, asking them what flavor profiles they look for. I'm really glad that, two real good artifacts we have is we have the original receipt, which is the sale for the farm in our archives. And we also have an original stock list that goes down, and there's loads of various different spices, there's eggs, there's oats, but thankfully at the bottom it does say whiskey. So,
okay. Okay, thank God.
The whole story is built on one word on a receipt. So it's a phenomenal thing that I've managed to see, which is great.
That's amazing.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I was just saying, I was repeating. Amazing. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Carry on, please. You are guest.
I guess the next generations that came along, Alexander Walker and then Alexander Jr., were the pioneers who searched for the real essence of what Johnny Walker whiskey was to make it what blended whiskey is now, right? I know if I travel home to my family home in Japan and buy a bottle of Johnny Walker in the lot there, or if I buy one in Edinburgh where I live, or if I'm seeing my best mate in LA, that blended whiskey is all going to taste the same, and I think that's what's really important. And that's what they search for. A couple of really strange facts that I found out, a year or so ago was when Coca-Cola launched, Johnny Walker was already in 100 countries around the world.
Wow.
And insane, right? And last year, our world-class global cocktail competition, which is the biggest cocktail competition in the world, ran by Diageo, really pioneering bartenders and searching for the new best bartenders in the world. But last year was going to be in Australia. And the reason for that was the first boat that left Scotland with Johnny Walker on it was destined for Australia. So these guys set their heights really high and went, let's get that whiskey as far and far away as we possibly can. So I guess that brings the story of, Johnny Walker, 4 corners of Scotland to 4 corners of the world.
Yeah, I mean, and how they would just never really have known, like talking today, that we're going back and we're just about to try a dram that's celebrating that history and celebrating the old school, where it began, but where it is now. I mean, it's one of those things you could just never imagine back in the day. And it's really incredible. And actually, Mikolai's saying he's recommending everyone the book, A Long Stride by Nicholas Morgan on the history of Johnny Walker.
It's an absolutely fantastic book. And I really recommend, if you can get your hands on one of these bottles, it's dipping with a bottle. And amazing that as you sip over a number of nights, a number of weeks reading the book, I found that my bottle of whiskey came to an end as I got to the end of the book as well, which is just, I don't know, it seems like it was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. It was fate for that bottle of whiskey with that book. I think, for me, the question before we get onto the jam is, we've spoken about how blended whiskey, with the emergence of single malts and just the popularity of single malts at the moment, it's Johnny Walker does this amazing job of staying relevant in the blended whiskey market and keeping relevant within a market which is becoming much more, lots of people, especially in the whiskey world, are going much towards single malts, and Johnny Walker manages to stay relevant within that part of the industry.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that the team, Johnny Walker, whether it's the blenders or, the marketing team and how they work together to stay relevant. When we look 20 years ago, 98% of the world's Scotch whiskey that was sold was blended whiskey. Yeah, okay, that's dropped to 92%, but the volume of whiskey that's being sold globally has gone up massively. Yeah. But when you look at, of course, we're about to taste a fantastic blend, which is amazing for blend drinkers and single malts. It heroes a whole entire region that, I don't think we talk enough about because it's such a vast, barren land. But, when you look at some of the more rare Johnny Walkers out there and the information we're given, they really help the single malt drinkers have access to whiskies that probably you wouldn't necessarily have. for example, the Ghost and Rare series. I was tasting Legendary 8 last week on a tasting, and that pays homage to Carsbridge and Cambris are two of the grain distilleries that go in there that you'll never taste again. When you look at the Ghost and Rare series, also with the Port Ellen, or the Brora, or the Glenurry Royal, these are blends, but they do have a significant amount of the heroed single malt in there, and a whiskey that you'll never ever taste again.
And stuff you can't afford anymore, basically, from close to
when you buy a bottle of Brora, it's about £6,500 now. When you could buy a bottle of the Ghost and Rare new for about £250.
Absolutely.
So,
no, I totally agree. I think blended whiskey does get a bad rep at sometimes, but I mean, we talk about the blend. I mean, the guys, talking about Johnny Walker, I mean, the absolute science that goes behind choosing what they're putting into these blends is absolutely incredible.
It's phenomenal. I was having a conversation with a few colleagues last night. Pierrick, who's our Lagavulin distillery manager, Todd Bradbury, who used to do my job a long time ago, who's now the head of rare and collectible whiskies for Justerini and Brooks, and Ewan Gunn, who's one of our global luxury brand ambassador. And we were having a conversation about the Coopers, about the distilleries, about the operators in the distilleries. The conversation always comes back to the blenders. The job they do is so hard and so tough. If I was a blender, I would walk around with a mask on. Sorry, I know it's bad to say right now, but with a protective mask on, protecting my nose and mouth so much, because that's my whole entire job. And the things that they do they work magic. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And being from Japan as well, the absolute art form that goes behind blending in Japanese whiskey is the same thing. It's just an absolute art form. So it's weird how it still sometimes gets a bit of bad rep. Dan S is asking, are all Johnny Walker releases blended? Have Johnny Walker? Go ahead, TJ.
So a long time ago, I was in Japan on a holiday visiting my relatives, and I just started serious cocktail bartending, and I walked into a booze shop, and there was a bottle of Johnny Walker single malt there. I didn't buy it foolishly. I should have. But yes, all of the Johnny Walkers are blended. Pretty much every release contains green whiskey, apart from Green Label, which is a blend of 4 malts. So that's a really interesting one. Green Label Heroes Talisker, which we don't really name in any other blends. So it's a really, really interesting blend. But yeah, the rest of them is Johnny Walker are all blended whiskey. They all contain some amount of grain, albeit from Cameron Bridge, could be Carsbridge, could be Port Dun. There's a lot of different changes with what goes on.
We had I think for any porn sip has been with us for a while. I think we had a 30-year-old Cameron Bridge a while ago in one of these boxes, which was absolutely delightful. Jeff, I think we'll get onto your question now, because I think we should start to talk about this particular dram and this particular bottle, because this is super exciting when asking about the difference between John and Johnny Walker. So talk to us about this bottle, the John Walker bottle, the Celebratory.
So I absolutely love that, and I happen to have one in my house, which is great. As you can see, I've clearly done a couple of tastings and sent drams to friends and whatnot. But it's a limited release, celebrating, hence the celebratory blend, celebrating the 200-year anniversary of Johnny Walker. I think that, of a lot of the Johnny Walkers are very, very fairly priced. Of course, we have more prestige ones, but this one was a really, really accurately priced to kind of give back to our whiskey aficionados, around about 50 quid, give or take, on the price point. I like how the ABV is a little bit higher. Most Johnny Walkers are at the 40%, couple up at 43. So this one being at 51 is just giving that extra punchiness and more pungent flavors. And I guess the first time I tried it, I tried it from an unbranded bottle, or I didn't see the label on it. And the first point when I picked it up, I was told it was 51%. So, as Christiane said, the first thing I did was I took my time as I put my nose to it. Because at 51%, if you pop your nose straight in there, alcohol's gonna burn everything, and that's exactly the position you don't want to be in when you're trying to taste whiskey. But no, that straight away, when I picked it up, people said caramel, people said toffee, people said creaminess. I got pure Scottish tablet. Was the first on the nose.
That's a great tasting note, Scottish. That's a great tasting note.
It's kind of a combination of everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so significant as to what it actually is. as a but the first thing I did notice was, compared to the majority of our Johnny Walkers, was the distinctive lack of punchy peat smoke in there. There is still a little bit in there, but nothing compared to what you would have on Black Label, for example, with that big, nice wisp of Kalila that comes through. So that's what I really noticed, was that sort of the pungent smoke isn't there.
But I mean, I love looking at the bottle. Obviously, this is a celebration of 200 years. And this is, I mean, this is going back to the slanty label from 200 years ago, the kind of the cool old school screw top. That's all part of it, right? It's all part of this celebration.
Yeah, I mean, the dream or the hope was to really celebrate a real significant time within Johnny Walker's timeline over the 200 years. And, you know, in the 1860s, 1870s or so, that's when the slanted label really became the icon of blended Scotch whisky with Johnny Walker. So I like how we've gone back to that. At that time, the various different blends that were happening, there was a Highland Blend. So this one here reads, inspired by our original old Highland whiskey. So it is paying homage back to a really prominent time. And I think really at that time, with the storyline of Johnny Walker, they bought Cardew, they were buying distilleries to really make sure that they could secure the supply. And at this point was probably around about one of the times where they nailed that flavour profile that was going to be exactly how that whiskey was going to taste for the future.
And is this is this trying to hark back to that particular bottle and that particular style of blending, the classic Johnny Walker flavour profile from that period of time?
Yeah. I mean, you look at Johnny Walker bottles prior to the 1860s, and they're still in cylinder form. And that time was when the square bottle, the four corners came from. You know, that, so it really starts paying homage back to absolutely everything in that time. The biggest thing I noticed when I picked it up, apart from as soon as you move it, you can tell it's higher ABV because there's lots of bubbles that appear. Yeah, but it was actually how thin the glass was. So when I picked it up, I thought, is that a half litre? But it's a 700. So even compared to a red label bottle or a black label bottle, the base is a little bit smaller. The glass seems a little bit, I would say it's toughened, but it seems a little bit more delicate. Yeah. And all paying back to a time when I guess we didn't have the expertise we have now to execute everything perfectly every time.
Yeah. I mean, I love old school and I love celebrations many years gone back, like kind of time warp kind of stuff. It's awesome. I've got to read out some of these tasting notes because whilst me and TJ have been talking, everyone else has gone straight in for the whiskey, and I don't blame you. So before we get to our tasting notes, I'll just get through a few of these. Mike Pizarro, lemon curd on buttered crumpets. Oh, wow. Ian Jambo Rain. This is really subtle on the nose after the Daddy Rack. Absolutely. I mean, the Daddy Rack was on the other end of the spectrum of sweetness. Steve Coleman Williams, fudge and almonds on the nose. David Woolcock, getting spice and grassy heather here. Green tea is green. Nose for the John Walker is creamy, baked well tart, nice little nose. Kevin Omar's pan fudge, bit of sherry. Guy CP, I get a baked vanilla tart from M&S, very specific. It's like it's in front of me. Malcolm Tucker, I'm getting frangipan, honey and background hint of smoke. Ali Curran, a kind of jammy taste, nice, warm, spicy finish, quite nice. Nigel Gain, yes, a warming whiskey. Blimey, I've got a lot to get through here. And Ian Jambaran is quite lovely on the palate. It's got fruit, spice, creaminess, sweetness, and darker coffee cacao hits in the finish. I haven't even tried this yet. I've been nosing it, and it's wonderful on the nose. I have to say, even though at 51% ABV, which is great to see, I'm not getting like this huge hit of alcohol in the nose. It's still quite, I'm not getting that kind of huge 51% kinds of ABV coming from the nose, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's still lots of fruity notes, lots of apricot.
I agree with you, absolutely. That 51% when you pick up normal whiskies around that style or that ABV, they're so much more pungent. But we've managed to keep all those delicate flavors really prominent. Once again, amazing art behind the blenders. But I guess if we were to name a few distilleries that were definitely going to be in this, are Diageo distilleries in the Highlands between Blair Athol, Dalwhinnie, Oban's classified there, Clynelish, T&Innick. So I would hazard a guess that those are distilleries that are definitely going to feature within this blend.
I love Clynelish 14. It's my favourite Diageo product. It's honestly beautiful. But I've got to say, on instantly, I mean, the weight on the 51% for me is on the palate much more. It's that kind of the mouthfeel, which is giving it a much kind of heavier, more viscosity on the mouth, as wonderful. And that whisper of smoke is there slightly underneath, giving it this lovely balance. That's really, really wonderful stuff. Green tea is green, oily, rather woody taste to it. David Brown, nothing to say from beauty with this. I'm sorry, that's my terrible reading there. David Brown, nothing to say apart from pure beauty with this dram. Yeah, so I think, yes, exactly. Sometimes when you're reading out loads of tasting notes, your eyes just go, yeah. Ian Jambo Rain, really enjoying this one. Big up the blends. I completely agree with you on the blended thing. I think there's this absurd modern day single malt drinkers like, I don't drink blends. I honestly do not understand that. And I think we can all learn something from blended whiskey.
There's such a difference between the two, really, malts and blends. I always think that malts, we'd always talk about three prominent flavors, like primary colors, and then they go into secondary colors, then tertiary colors. But those flavors are, so prominent at primary, and then they fade away, and they're really hard to get to. Whereas blended whiskey gives us all of those flavors together in an even playing field. And I think that's what is so great about grain whiskey, is it balances the gaps between being jumpy of different flavors. So it knows that it kind of rolls from that initial hot spice black pepper that I get from this, that then moves into the maltiness and digestive biscuit style, and then moves into all of that sort of apricot and stone fruit flavors. And then you're left with this citrus, buttery, but smoky tone at the end. And all of them are even flavors, and it's like a really nice journey that you can take every step through every time you take a sip. Whereas, don't get me wrong, I love single malts. How could you not? But they bounce from one flavour to another flavour sometimes. And I think that's what blended whiskey always offers, is that roundness.
Well, when you're dealing with people who are working for companies, I don't know, we've had in the past here on Pour and Sip somewhere like Compass Box or Scallywag we tried in the past, and then just looking at this one now with this dram we're drinking, the absolute science that's gone behind these and the kind of the palates of the people that have put this together is obviously going to create something that, the flavor profiles are so evenly matched because they've been, put together to be like that. And I mean, I've got to be honest, this is wonderful. This is one of the best Johnny Walkers I've tried recently. Jess, what's the story behind the label at 24 degrees?
It's just pure great marketing when it comes down to it. When you walk into a bar, when that's sitting on a back bar between all the bottles, you can see a square bottle and that angle straight away, and that's Johnny Walker. John Dewar had his marketing ways where he had his bike with the tires with John Dewar and Sons written on it and things like that. And that's what it was. It was just genius marketing that came through it. I mean, the Striding Man has been so prominent with Johnny Walker for so long. I'm really fortunate. I've got, I'd say vintage now, but some people might disagree that my bomber jacket from the early 90s or 80s isn't vintage. But it's a baseball jacket, and the Striding Man is actually walking, we say, the wrong way. Because when you walk from left to right, it signals progression. And that's why they flipped the Striding Man when originally he was going from right to left. I guess at the same point, Scotch whiskey forever has been around about gents in kilts, and that's always the marketing ploy behind it. And then all of a sudden, they had this gentrified London gentleman drinking this refined blended Scotch whiskey, and it was just about attracting different people and being recognised. And I think they've done it so well. The fact that people remember that it's 24 degrees is phenomenal. There might be people who say 42 to me, and I let them away with it and kind of give them a gentle correction. At least they got the numbers right, If they came in at 37, I'd be angry.
Yeah, it's like completely wrong. So, I mean, I have to say, it's incredible. You don't even have to be a whiskey drinker to recognise that label, and that is just incredible marketing, incredible brand design, incredible awareness. So unbelievably iconic. I think it literally is nothing more iconic, I think, in this industry than that label in itself.
Absolutely, and I think pioneers recognising the fact that when the label is slanted, there's more surface area, so I can have larger branding on there. This literally sounds like something I would do, so I could write my name in bigger. I mean, I've got 2 letters, right? You can't really write it big enough. But that idea of being able to put more information on the bottle or have a bigger brand so people can recognise it is so important. It's all part of the story of why Johnny Walker, I'm proud to say this, #1 selling Scotch whiskey globally.
yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, you wouldn't even, like I said, you wouldn't even need to be a whiskey drinker to probably hazard a guess at that one. Just a couple of notes there. Jeff, burnt sugar on oranges and tangerines, very quaffable. Steve Coleman Williams, snobbishness, Andy, as self-confessed earlier, but you've cured me about his blended whiskey. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not a, you know, some people have their preferences towards anything. But I say with like anyone who says they don't like bourbon, they only drink single malt Scotch. You know, it's like, well, there's so many varieties of things you can try. I'm sure there's going to be something that transforms you and cures you, in this case, Stephen Coleman Williams. Jeff, and a lot of people don't realise that single malt is blend just from one distillery. That's true. James Kerr, getting stewed fruits on the nose, fantastic mouthfeel, maybe a fruit tart thing on the palate. I think the flavours are very subtle for a 50%, 51% whiskey. I think I may be adding this to my collection. Is this a limited edition?
It is a limited run. Unfortunately, I haven't been told how many numbers there are, but I know that there was X amount made, and when it's gone, it's gone. And good news for you, I got my hands on a lot of it, and I've been opening bottles and giving drams to bartenders if bars have reopened. So single-handedly, I've made, if you can get your hands on one, it's more rare than it was last week.
Everyone can blame TJ if it sells out on the Pour and Sip store then at this point. So no, head to the Pour and Sip store. I mean, this is a limited release, and like TJ saying, once it's gone, it's gone. So yeah, you don't need to say much more than that. Sometimes I buy one and then buy another one to keep, to not open with stuff that's limited. I do like to open all my whiskies. If anyone follows my Instagram account will be aware. But sometimes there are whiskies that are limited runs that are worth keeping hold of, but you still want to drink them. So there's that case. But yeah, anyway, Mike Pizarro, this is my 5th Johnny Walker. I've tried all of the Game of Thrones editions and the taste of it. I enjoyed the Song of Fire Breath and the Green, which was excellent, but this is next level. James Kerr, yep, so loads and loads of taste notes. Andrew Bowley, very surprised. Green tea is green, oily is woody. David Brown, nothing to say apart from pure beauty, as we discussed. So yeah, I think we're all enjoying this one very much. Thank you very much. And I've got to say, yeah, for me, it's the kind of malt digestive biscuits note on the palate. There's kind of exotic kind of maybe papaya, pineapple kind of notes as well that are heading towards the kind of back palate. It's really, really complex as well. And that's another thing I really like about it.
Yeah, it's delicious. One of my absolute favourites. I'm so glad that it was launched as a product and something we've had a great conversation about for a long time. And yeah, I think I'll definitely be trying to keep one or two aside to open in years come, just to celebrate once again.
Okay, I agree. Thank you so much for joining us, TJ, and talking through us. Hopefully you can stick around to the end because we're about to try another dram, the 3rd and final dram, and we'll welcome back Christy to go through that with us. Hello, Christy. What did you think?
Oh, hi. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favourite things from last year. I was so lucky to get to taste it around the celebration time. So I was like, this is such a delicious blend. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, thank you, TJ. And I can't remember who someone said earlier, like, big up the blends. I want this on a t-shirt. I want to be like, look, everyone, blends are amazing. As I go through life, that would be ideal.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, but let's do a big up the blends t-shirt. I'm in.
Do it. Big up the blends. Why not? We need it. But yeah, thank you so much, TJ. Do hang around. We'll be back, I guess, if you can join us in 10-15 minutes for a general chin wag. So everyone, there will be another opportunity to put your questions to TJ. Keep them coming. But time is running away with us. How has this happened? We'll say bye for now. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Cut him off by accident then. I can see him just enjoying his whiskey. That's excellent. Yes, 3rd and final dram. So we've been in the US. We have had a wonderful blended Scotch, and now we are going to play with some single malt Scotch, but over on the island of Islay. So this is our Bowmore now for the last dram of today. Don't worry, we'll be back with the other 2 later in the month on the 15th, if you can resist. But Andy, tell me your thoughts about Islay. Are you an Islay fan? Are you a smoky whiskey fan?
Yeah, massively. I think my journey with whiskey started with smoky whiskey. I'm one of those obscure people who tried a Lafroig 10 and was like, oh man, I love this stuff. This is the stuff I like. Whereas usually people are just like, oh no, I'm not so sure about that. Go for a sweeter Speyside style and then go over to Islay and go, oh, actually, maybe. But I found with Bowmore, it's one of those ones that I recommend to people, particularly the 12, because it's got that lovely sweetness to it and that kind of whisper of smoke and Islay smoke underneath. It's not got the brash Ardbeg, the kind of Lafroig kind of in your face kind of peat. But yeah, I mean, I love smoky whiskey. I think I've spoken about it enough. Yeah, I like smoky whiskey. Yourself?
I love peated whiskey. So if you're nosing this at the moment, the third dram, and you're a bit like, why does it smell of a bonfire? Give us 2 seconds and it will be revealed. So when
Ali
you're
Curran
making...
is saying that, just Ali Curran saying he's excitedly bouncing on his seat for this one.
Me too. I love it so much. So yeah, the first two that we've had, no smoke. Some whiskey is smoky. This is very definitely, the second you waft your schnoz over the top of that glass, you are going to get some smoke. And all it is where you kind of want to trick your barley kernels going right back to being whiskey making into germinating, and then you want to kill them off. Some distilleries will choose to use like a clean heat to do that, a clean fuel. Others will use peat. In fact, back in the day, most of them, if not all of them, would have used peat because it's free, easy to source, around everywhere. And some distilleries still choose to use it. And going slightly geeky, a compound called phenols in the smoke and in the peat will sort of cling to the barley kernels. And as they go through the whole process from milling and mashing and fermentation and distilling, they're so sticky and so pronounced that they will carry all the way through distilling, even maturation. And we get them on our nose in our glass now, which I think is kind of magic. I am very enchanted by these phenols, I have to say.
Absolutely. I mean, instantly from the nose, this one is particularly smoky, I have to say.
Definitely. I can hear your son's joining in. He's like, tell me more about the phenols. It's all good. But this is really interesting for me, actually, because Bowmore tends to be thought of, and certainly before I tasted this one, I was like, oh, Bowmore, nice. This is quite a middle of the road peat situation. It's definitely not the heaviest in terms of peat, and it's absolutely not the lightest. But on the nose, this is straying more into Southern Islay territory, I feel.
I was about to say on the nose, like with Bowmore, like I said before, I get that kind of, it's a good entry level peaty whiskey. This one is not. This is pure utter peat, and it's that iodine peat as well that I'm getting that's so kind of synonymous with kind of Islay peat and not the Highland peat we were talking about. It's not that heathery kind of woody kind of peat. We're talking about very kind of sea salt iodine kind of minerality about it.
Definitely, but don't be scared, give it a go. So this is the Vault edition. So like a lot of distilleries, Bowmore releases sort of these limited editions, quite collectible, trying to do something a little bit different every so often. And this is the second edition. I can't remember for life what the first one was called at this point, but the second one is this, Peat Smoke. And what they do, they celebrate, I think the first one was number 1 Vaults, actually, thinking about it, which was celebrating the very historic warehouse they have right by the sea. I think one of the oldest in Scotland, a dunnage warehouse. So you walk in, and the ceilings are low, and you've got like a dusty floor and low racks of these great big barrels, and it smells incredible. So the first one was celebrating that. This one's celebrating, obviously, the peat smoke. So it kind of makes sense, really, that it would be a bit more pronounced smoke-wise than others.
It seems like it's a good experiment for Bowmore to do something kind of that does celebrate the peat without thinking too much about kinds of, let's say, the sales, maybe, I don't know, but thinking, because their products is in the 12, the 15, the 18 are much more kind of, like the peat isn't the Ardbeg, Lefroy Pris. There's probably an opportunity for Bowmore to do something a bit more kind of that territory.
Indeed. I'm going to taste it in a minute, but just going through some of the comments. Jeff, Pour and Sip ought to organise a tour of Islay. I've only been there twice. Can you actually imagine us all on the road together around Islay? It'd be incredible.
How many of us are going on this trip, to be honest?
All of us would. We'd have to hire the whole island.
Yes.
Rob is saying, oof, this smells like a campfire right up my street. Yes. Jen, Bowmore was the first whiskey I actually liked. Yes, Jen, great tasting whiskey. Graham's going, peaty, smoky smoke. Steve, let me go back to it. Reminds me of my wedding day. Fiance wife got a 25-year-old Bowmore triple filtered for a wedding present. That is a good wedding present. Yeah. Excellent work on finding a fabulous partner there. Yeah. Nigel, medium, not as strong peat as Lefroy. David, bonfires peat, honey. Ali, Bunhaven 12 was my first island, non-smoked of course, but a gentle introduction. And there's loads. I want to light my fire pit now from Batman Joker. Ian, the nose always takes you back to an island hopping holiday on the west coast of Scotland. Don't. And someone else is talking about taking them to a time they were, I can't pronounce the name of the house, but in Aberdeen playing snooker in a smoke-filled games room in the middle of winter. I can't. All these amazing memories.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those which is like, it does bring you to those, if you've got outside memories, particularly in Scotland, but also kind of bonfire nights and kind of campfire vibes, sitting round the fire, telling stories outside. It's got all of that in the nose, like instantly. It's great. I mean, something here, it's not as strong as Ardbeg. I agree. I wonder what the phenols are for this. I doubt it's quite at that Ardbeg level of kind of how particularly strong the phenol parts per million are. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, this has got, for me, the peatiest Bowmore I've ever nosed and about to try.
I think so. Let's have a try. I literally can't wait. I can't control myself any longer. Self-control is gone. We're having a sip. Cheers, everybody.
Bouncing in his chair while we're talking.
Mm. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Oh.
That's so good. ABV warning. We're 50.1% again, so similar to the previous one. Wow. Yeah. So much flavour right now. I'm even getting maybe a bit of sherry cask going on. There's a lot of fruit in there with the smoke.
There's definitely dried fruit in there. I would be sure there's some form of sherry cask in there.
Oh, it's so good. This, I think this is the thing that's so evocative for me about peated whiskey, Islay whiskey. It's so transportive. It just takes you to another place. Like everyone's coming up with all these times that it reminds them of these aromas and tasting those. And I just think it's incredible. I love it so much. And yeah, 2019, obviously the last time we were on Islay for the Islay Festival, sitting outside Bowmore on the beach in the sunshine, dram not as smoky as this, but to be there right now, can you imagine?
I've got to, I mean, there's a real kind of herbalness to this as well. And kind of it's really, really complex. A real savoury element. There's like kind of that roasted meats vibe, but almost even like mushroomy at the back of the palate as well, which is, it's really, really complex, but strange as well. But yeah, I really like that. And there's definitely that sweetness underneath that's kind of keeping it not becoming this, absolute blow your face off smoke. It's kind of like we said, that dried kind of stewed red fruits maybe that's kind of there underneath, kind of balancing it out, which giving it, it's complex. I have to say, this one's going to take me a while to sit over.
I totally love this. And there's a minerally ashiness on the finish as well, which I mean in a good way. It's again, maybe that comes back to sort of that meaty vibe. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's like roasted meats for me as well on the palate, not that kind of barbecued meat I get. I mean, it's really, really interesting. Ian Jambo Rain, bits of fruitiness on the nose. Has this been in a sherry cask? It doesn't say, but
so I'm gonna trust my palate on this one. And I quite often think about this, like when you're judging a spirit, sometimes it's like, I think I said this before, you're a detective. You're trying to suss out the clues and what's going on and what might have gone on before. Without knowing, but from tasting it and nosing it, I would suspect there's some sherry influence going on in here. And
also Bowmore often use sherry as well. So I mean, I'd be surprised if there wasn't some form of sherry cask giving it that kind of dried fruit kind of vibe underneath, to be honest with you. On the second sip, Joe F is saying there's definite fruitiness on the palate at the edge of the peat. Absolutely, Dan S. Might need a coach or two for all of us. I agree, Dan, to be honest with you. Steve Coleman Williams, please let Christy know that she made my wife blush, though totally agree with her. Well, that's an amazing present. Come on. Michael Tucker, I get an oily feel on the nose, followed by a hit of peaty smoke-filled Crofter's Lounge. I'm not sure what that is.
Oh, a croft, like a small sort of farmer's house in Scotland, I would guess. Clearly showing my lack of Scottishness here.
Malcolm Tucker, you can
educate us.
Educate us. Dan S, so much brown sugar. David Stanton, Peat, cherry, brown sugar. James Fallon, that's a buyer for me. Yeah, absolutely. This is probably one of the best Bowmores I've had in
I'm absolutely loving this. I'm loving this. And I think it's just my heart and soul long for Islay, quite frankly, which I think that's a sign of whatever spirit or wine you're drinking. Like if it really just wakes something up in you and you're like, oh, love it, reminds you of stuff, or it's just really enchanting. Yeah, I'm totally here for it.
It's often I think it's often underlooked, by the way, in terms of Islay, because everyone talks about Ardbeg, Lafroig and Lagavulin. These kind of like the big three, and Bowmore does often get underlooked. I think this is the kind of dram that would kind of get everyone looking at it quite a lot more, to be honest with you, and everyone talking about it quite a lot more like with Ardbeg and Lafroig, because that's like real smoke monster. It's lovely. Yeah,
totally here for it. I've just seen that TJ's vanished. He didn't keep to his word to stick around. So we may not, we'll see if we can get him back. If we can get him back, great. Somebody might be frantically emailing
One more question.
Oh no, TJ, if you're listening, come back. We have questions. If not, we'll have to get you back another time. But yeah, this is just a sensational dram for me. It's so exciting. All three of them have been amazing. I kind of don't want to stop. I just want to sit and sip. Just looking at Ali saying, my partner during a Bowmore experience stated that Le Chig was like licking an ashtray, but in a good way. That would fit this dram too. I totally agree.
I love Le Chig. We had the Sinclair series, the Rioja cask Le Chig, which was absolutely wonderful on this, and that's another type of smoking. I always get like smoked meat with that with Le Chig, but that's not from Islay. So interesting how we can use peat from different regions. We often associate peaty whiskey with Islay, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But this is definitely an Islay whiskey.
Yeah, can make peaty whiskey anywhere at all.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. Colin Bell, smoky bacon on the finish. Yes.
Frazzle crisps.
Absolutely frazzles. Sarah C. Wright reminds me of karaoke in college at a smoky dive bar. Such good memories. That's what's awesome about whiskey. I mean, it does transport you to those places. Definitely smoky dive bar has got peaty whiskey all over it. Malcolm Tucker, small cottage owned by a crofter, small holding in Scotland.
Every day's a school day.
Mike Pizzara, can I be controversial? And this isn't controversial at all, Mike Pizzara. Can I be controversial and say I prefer the Johnny Walker? I mean, I love this too. It's not controversial because we're going to ask everybody what their favourite dram was of the, and I might even tell you mine. It might not be controversial. Mine might be different. If TJ's not here, I'll definitely tell you mine. Rob, Ian Jambaran, I think that's what sometimes knocks me off Lefroy. The lack of TCP in this is very enjoyable. Seems a lot more balanced. Absolutely, I agree that Lefroy for me always has that absolute overbearing TCP hospital floor kind of antiseptic vibe about it. And I don't get that from this at all. I actually think that that's a good thing in the Lefroy. I love that. But it doesn't seem to be here, in all honesty. There's more iodine as well, but I wouldn't say TCP. Joe F, all these are great drams you're sharing with us. This is dangerous to my bank balance. Very sorry, Joe F. El Sutton, nice, but I prefer Lagavulin. Colin Bathgate, Le Chig, Rioja Castle was beautiful. And Colin Bell, Bowmore tonight for me, off the scale. So I think, yeah. Should we ask everyone?
Yes, now is the time for the question. So stick your, what is it? Put your post in the sand. Is that the expression I'm trying to think of? I don't know. It's too late in the day. Colours to the mast, whatever you're going to call it. Tell us which of the three was your favourite. We want to know. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, and Nikolai saying, I didn't know that Bowmore had that kind of peat in their range. Yeah,
Neither did I.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm surprised this hasn't made a bigger kind of, it's not, been more kind of out there and advertised. I hadn't actually seen this before, and I think it's amazing, to be honest with you. And I'm surprised it's not kind of, because this is Bowmore in like a really kind of peaty peat monster Bowmore, and that's not what we necessarily associate it with. So it's really nice to see. I think that's a wonderful for a limited edition. Is a limited edition?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So the Vault series, the Vault edition, they're all sort of a fairly limited run. Again, I don't know how many, but again, it's flown under the radar. Sometimes, a distillery will do it like a next series, and then everyone talks about it. It's all over Twitter. It's all over Instagram. Don't know why people haven't seen this. So yeah, I was about to say tell your friends, but don't.
Exactly, because we can buy more. This is what TJ was saying about the Johnny Walker. Carol was saying how great it is. We won't be able to buy it. Welcome to the world of buying Springbank. But I have to say that this is you flying under the radar was exactly the words I was looking for. Thank you very much, Chris. Because usually when you get an Ardbeg release, a new release, and a limited edition on Instagram, Twitter, it just blows up. You can't buy it. This has been very different, and I'm surprised because this is really, really good, I have to say. And judging from everybody's favourites for us, I think a lot of people kind of agree with us. Ian Turner, Bowmore favourite. James Fallon, no contest. Bowmore all the way, but I'm an Islay groupie. John James, Bowmore favourite by miles. Love the smoke. Tim Simon, John Walker for me. Rob Bester got to be the Bowmore for me. What a flavour. Any more?
There's so many. I wasn't sure if we take over then or not. Steve Cromwell Williams, Bowmore for me, both taste and sentiment. But love an Islay. Ian Thompson, Bowmore. Green tea is green, Bowmore. Dave has gone Johnny Walker, and we've got a Pesho as well, Daddy Rack. There's some boats coming through for everyone, actually.
That's a love for Daddy Rack. Yeah, it feels like forever ago. It's like it's been such a journey of different kinds of. I mean, tonight's been mad in terms of like the different styles we've tried tonight. And Daddy Rack feels like I can't remember.
Was it even the same month?
No, it's mad.
I like David Woodcock. 3 5-stars for different reasons, but for me, the Bowmore just nudges it based on personal preference for the peat and other whiskies, and that's it. I think they're all so distinct and so doing their thing. I love it. This is like what's special about whiskey, right?
We say this often, but if you are new, the great thing about this and being a member of Pour and Sip is you're never going to try many times these kinds of drams in a row like this on a live tasting. It's like you just we've gone all over the world essentially, and gone from America, and we've got a blended whiskey, and now we've got a Scottish whiskey. We've had so many different world whiskies. I think we've got Taiwanese whiskey in this box as well. So it's just so much variety within whiskey at the moment. It's just such an exciting time to be a part of it and to be trying all of this kinds of stuff. It's really amazing.
So is. And what a joy of meeting. TJ hasn't come back. I don't know if anyone's managed to reach him. But if you do have any questions for him, put them in the comments so we can always email him. And I'm feeling like we might have to get a smoky cokie floaty recipe from him for the old socials as well.
I'd say we've often promised cocktail recipes on the socials. What was the one with Gem Bar, which everyone loved?
Oh, yes. That was incredible. The Guinness.
It was the Guinness. I can't remember what was in it, but yeah, we will try and get that recipe out. Just a few more of your favourites. Nigel Gain, 2 are about the same great Bowmore and the Celebratory. Oh my God, was it Celebratory or Celebratory?
I feel like I go very American with it and say Celebratory, but I think that's just me spending too much time in the US prior to COVID.
James Kerr would have to go Johnny Walker tonight. Was just so much better than expected. Simon John Walker, but also bought the Daddy Rack. Dan S, Johnny Walker. Daniel, I'm Sidlowski. As a peat lover, I have to say Bowmore is my absolute winner of the evening. David Woolcock, 3 5-stars for different reasons. God blimey, we've already done that. Sarah Seawright, Daddy Rack, I'm biased. Sarah, yes, you're Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee resident.
I thought you'd say that. Steve Howdy Doody, Daddy Rack for me. Colin Bell is the Bowmore limited edition. Yes. Mike Sutcliffe, John Walker celebration #1. Bowmore Vault edition, Daddy Rack, a fantastic trio. I think that's quite a lot. But yes. What about you, Christy? Come on. It's just the 2 of us.
What about me? Oh, do you know what? I love the Johnny Walker, but the biggest surprise to me was the Bowmore. That's what I'm going to say. Because the Johnny Walker was one of my favourite things that I tried last year. And I knew that already going into this. But the Bowmore, I was like, oh, Bowmore, lovely. I love a bit of Bowmore. This will be a treat. Then nose it. And I'm like, oh, hello. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I wasn't expecting quite that from Bowmore. So that was a really nice surprise. But then I hadn't tried that John Walker before, the Celebratory blend. So, I thought that was so complex. I'm never going to get that right. But then I love the Daddy Rack as well.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah. What are we going to do? What are we going to
do? If maybe I think the one for me that really maybe was the Johnny Walker. It's really complex. I'm going to enjoy sitting with the last couple of drops I've got of that the rest of the evening because it's really. Thank you, Green Tea is Green. Celebratory. Thank you very much.
We've forgotten how to speak at this point, but we're fine. Too much excitement for one evening. But no, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's been another amazing evening. And to be honest, hanging out with everyone on a Thursday just feels like such a treat. Thank you all for getting involved and bringing the energy and, sharing all your thoughts.
Thank you. It's been an amazing night. Thank you for getting involved. That's what makes it special for us, really, is being able to chat with you guys and to be able to kind of read all your tasting notes. Thank you to TJ, and we'll get him back on hopefully at some point.
Yeah, he'll have to come back.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you, Christy, again for a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Andy. It's been an absolute joy as always, and we'll be back on the 15th. Don't forget to check us out on social in the meantime. The Pour and Sip Digest. Obviously, there's a member store with all your benefits and rewards and points. Points mean prizes. Yes. And yes, we'll be back. If you can resist the other 2 drams until the 15th, do. But we won't judge if it proves too much.
Yes, Steve Conway. Thank you, everyone. Presenters, of course, but definitely those 2 chatting away. We all make it what it is. Mike Bizarro, thank you again. In Jambo Rain, excellent session again, Andy and Christy. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Fantastic. We will see you again soon. Take care all. Enjoy the next couple of weeks.